Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 29. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. We are recording.
I asked you this question already.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
The morning.
We started recording this morning, and Julian's internet was not playing ball, so we are now recording in the afternoon, and it seems to be a lot better.
Oh yeah, it's 10 times better.
Yeah,
for sure. It was just you should have seen the weather outside my house. I should have taken my phone and filmed it because it was honestly
cats and dogs.
It was. Oh yeah. We've practically got a pond out in our back garden.
Yeah.
Right now, it's great. No landscaping needed.
Yeah, it's like
two days ago. Mother Nature.
2 days ago, it was splitting the skies, lovely. Outside having a barbecue.
Yeah.
Toasting marshmallows and everything, and then today it's like torrential. Just
welcome
rainforest.
to Scotland.
Yeah. Oh, 3 days ago. It was sunny, blue skies, and raining. Yep. I don't know.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
I did notice that. Yeah.
I was walking across the garden,
like
and
that.
It was like it's raining, and I'm looking up, and it's like blue sky. There's like a bit of cloud, like off to the left, and I was getting wet, and I'm like, where is that coming from? It's just it rains and sunny at the same time. Yeah. As it happens, most of our listeners are listening in America, so that's kind of a little glimpse into the Scottish climate. Bizarrely, it can be rain and sun at the same time. Anyway, today,
let's stop talking about the weather.
Yeah, it's typical. British
it's the podcast isn't called Level Up Your Meteorology.
Right. So this was an idea that you came up with because we
I
always
had it for a wee while.
We always talk about individual instruments and how you should take care of them and all that, but we have never tackled just that topic alone. So what we're going to do is we're going to break that whole thing down into different parts, and we're going to tackle each instrument one at a time and kind of go through all the various aspects of that instrument, whether it's like playing the instrument, finding the right instrument for you, like buying one, or recording that instrument. So we're going to start with drums, and then next week I think we're going to do bass. So we've got that covered in the first. We're a little bit less experienced on like guitar, so we'll probably get someone in to talk about
guitars and keyboards
in part 3. Yeah. Keyboard. I am a keyboardist before I was a drummer, so I think I'm a little not clued up on keyboards at the moment.
Even then, I have met keyboard players that are just like, I just bought this keyboard because it looks cool. Yeah. I'm like, okay, but have you never like? No. But it's either one or the other. They're like really into it, or they're just like.
There are two types of keyboard players. There's keyboard players that buy one keyboard and it does everything, and I'm one of them. I just bought a really maybe like 9 years ago. I bought a really great keyboard, and it does every sound that I could possibly want or need. And I just work with that one. And then you get other keyboardists that just buy a keyboard like once every 6 months, and they just have like loads and loads of keyboards.
They just to start a little collection. Yeah.
Yep. They get a sound and they get a format, and then as soon as they've got it, they change it. I never understood that. I like my keyboards.
So I've always wanted to delve into the world of keyboards, more the sort of like monologue, like mono synths, to play bass lines and things like that. But
great.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. Right now we're talking about
drums.
The foundation.
So
the most important.
Yeah, so we'll start at the start. It's a pretty sensible place to start. I'm sure you would agree. Actually, finding the kit that you want to buy, you want to play. So when I started wanting to play drums, seriously, my first kit I ever got was just a crappy plywood starter kit, just out of a local music shop, and it got me started. I learned to play on that kit. It wasn't a very good kit. It wasn't a very good sounding kit, and I felt like I was reaching the sort of edge of what was possible on that drum kit, and I felt that my ability to improve was being, I don't know, what's the word? Held back. I was held back by the lack of quality of the kit. So I'm sure there'll be loads of people that'll know what that kind of means. So if you're like a classical violinist and you've got a 100-200 pound violin from Amazon, eventually you're gonna get to a level of playing where you need something more in the sort of higher quality to complement your playing.
Something that's actually been lovingly crafted by a person.
Yeah,
who knows what they're doing.
It's kind of the same with drums. It's the same with most kind of
most instruments, really.
Old-fashioned, hit a thing and it makes a sound instruments. Keyboards are a little different because they're electronic, and you can basically get the crappiest keyboard in the world. If it's got MIDI, then you can connect it to anything and make it have any sound you want.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different, although you've got keys, action, and weight and all that, but it's kind of less important. But drums, I wanted a kit that I could take out and apply it to as many different genres as I was playing at the time, and I wanted something versatile. So I went down to the local drum shop, which is now out of business, incidentally. It was Drum Central in Trongate in Glasgow.
R.I.P.
Yeah, it was a great shop. I loved going in there. So I went in there with my then drum teacher, and we had a wee look about, and I found this kit. It was a Tama Superstar Hyperdrive kit, and I was playing sort of heavy rock, metal, prog metal, kind of Dream Theater-esque, and I thought, well, Mike Portnoy's got a Tama, so I'm going to get a Tama. But I was also playing lots of other styles of music, and I had a little shot of the kit in the shop, and I felt this isn't going to be just suitable for one style. I feel like this will be good for a lot of different applications. Because I'm so tall, I have my snare quite high, and the toms on that kit are really shallow, so they're really low. I don't like big deep toms because I don't like to reach up high, because it hurts my back because I'm tall. So these little shallow toms made it so that I didn't have to play really high up, and with the shallowness, I just like the tone of it. It sounds different. I think the big tall drums, big tall toms, they just sound a little bit boomy, and I just don't really like that sound as much. And I just like the crystal clear quality ring that you get off of the toms on that kit. That combined with the particular heads I like. I just really like the kit.
Cool.
Just when I played it, I was like, oh, this feels right. It just feels nice. I was thinking about Mapex kits, and they just sounded dead clunky to me. So I went with the Tama. But I had in the back of my mind, I'm going to be playing in a big band. I'm going to be playing in a heavy metal band and potentially a wedding band. So I'm like, I need a kit that can do all of that, because I didn't have enough money to buy more than one kit and not enough room. It'll be the same with you. When you pick a bass, you'll think, right, what am I doing currently? Right, I'm in this jazz group, or I'm in this folk group, and I'm in this country group. This bass will probably be pretty cool for all of those applications. I'm sure you think about that.
Yeah. We can talk about that next week.
It's
but yeah, I'm basically the same.
You sort of buy gear to suit what you're doing, I would say. And then the second point is the budget. So I went in with a budget, and I bought my budget. I think it was about £1,000 I went in with. I wanted to buy a kit that would last me. I mean, it's been 11 years now, so it's lasted me pretty well. And yeah, I was adamant. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get a kit that's going to last me. Plus, that laying out that £1,000, it shifted me up a gear, because it was like, I've spent a lot of my money. I was saving through high school. I saved up money. I didn't have a job. I'd never had a summer job or a part-time job. I've never been employed in my life. I've always been self-employed. And through school, I earned money from like just doing little odd things, like maybe a gig here, a gig there, and just general pocket money and stuff like that when I was going through school. And I bought this kit, and it was like, I spent this money, it's an investment, I'm really going to take this seriously, and I'm going to try and make that money back. That kit has paid for itself like 100, 200 times over. It was probably the best return on investment I've ever had. It's just incredible. Unlike my van, which is absolutely, it's just sitting in the driveway right now. 6 months of not moving. So don't be afraid. If you're going to be taking that kit out, and you can say, right, I'm going to be going and doing XYZ, and I'm really going to get my money's worth out of this. Don't be afraid to go, a decent price. If it's gonna be something that's gonna last you, I mean, don't go over the top.
Sure.
Obviously,
I suppose. At the same time, you can always fall into the trap of like, oh, the more expensive it is, the better it is, and that's not always.
No,
that's not always the case. So it's a good thing to sort of be wary of as well. That's something that I sort of. Again, we'll pick up on it next week, but it's something I sort of picked up on anyway when I started getting into instruments. I was just like, just being pleasantly surprised by some cheaper alternatives. Sometimes it is a good idea to just try a bit of everything. Yep. What about things like just a wee question that just popped up in my head. For drummers, is it important to have something like, is it as vital for you to have something like a backup instrument? So like, for example, for me, I like, and guitarists are the same, is that we like putting all your eggs in one basket on one guitar is a really dangerous thing to do, because something could happen and then you're out of luck basically. So basically the question is like, are backup kits important?
No.
For a drummer, or is it not as important?
Simply no. The reason is because unlike a guitar is just a guitar. You just take the guitar out of the case and you've got a guitar. If something breaks on it, the whole guitar is useless. But a drum kit's modular. If one thing breaks on the drum kit, you take that bit away and it's still a drum kit. If one tom arm breaks, all right, you take the tom off, it still works. It's still a kit. You can still make a sound with it. It's so modular that you can literally strip 10 bits off of a kit and still get some sort of performance out of it until you get the thing fixed that's broken. The thing that you will have drummers have backups, most certainly. Things like hi-hat clutches, drum heads, sometimes bass pedals, because bass pedal straps and chains love to break in the middle of gigs. It's happened to me a couple of times. I mean, one time I was playing a gig and I used to love playing, drummers will know, instead of the chain that goes from the footboard to the hammer, instead of using a chain, I used to use a strap because I preferred the feel of a strap. It's like a Kevlar canvas strap. I just preferred that feel. Well, they have a tendency to break and rip after a long period of time. But luckily, on the gig that I was on, when it snapped, I had my double pedal with me. So I swapped my kick pedal foot to my left foot. So I played the rest of the gig with playing the bass drum with my left foot instead of the right foot. That was hard. That was very difficult. I was like, okay, I've been playing right-handed forever, and then I'm gonna have to play left-handed. So that was like that. You could say that's a backup. You have little bits of backup, not the whole instrument. I mean, I do have a backup kit, but that's for a separate reason. That's because I have a studio and I don't want people destroying my kit.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is just I suppose it comes with the territory in that the drum kits are instruments that take a lot of abuse anyway, so it wouldn't, it would make more sense for just like little things. I suppose that's just the mark of any good instrument, is that a good instrument should last you a lifetime, basically.
Yeah.
And if you do ever have to replace something, it's like on a guitar, for example, it would maybe be like a tone knob here, or maybe the pickup needs rewired or something.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're playing on a kit or something, and then your tom splits in half,
If your tom shell
probably
splits,
never happens.
If your tom shell splits, there's two reasons why it could have happened. One, it's cheap garbage, or two, it's not cheap garbage and you've dropped it and you're misusing it. If you, like, I've got a really cheap garbage kit set up right now. It's just a practice kit for bands. It can be thrown around and it doesn't matter. Now there are like cracks in the wood because it's just plywood. It's just rubbish. But I haven't misused it. It's been treated fairly well. But my other kit, which has been to, oh my God, hundreds and hundreds of venues and hundreds of gigs, and it's not got a single mark on it. The wood is perfect, and it's been in freezing cold vans, boiling hot marquees, in and out, up, downstairs, elevators, lifts, cities, countryside, outside, inside, everywhere, and it's absolutely fine because it's a really well-made kit.
Different countries as well.
Yeah. So so the next thing you think about is, it kind of goes back to like, consider what you're going to play, what style you're playing and stuff. So if you're playing in a heavy metal band, getting a big fat kick drum would probably be a good idea, because you want a big kick drum sound. If you're playing in a jazz band, you probably want a tiny little bass drum, like those jazz drummers play, which I always make fun of. I love playing a jazz kit. It's so hilarious. It's like playing like Argos my first kit from Argos or something.
They're very cute, but yes, they have a very particular sound. But the thing about jazz music anyway is it's a type of chamber music,
Yeah.
So most of the time you're not even the kit. It depends on the venue, I guess, but the kit wouldn't even be mic'd up.
Yeah.
So that's right. Those kind of venues you're playing with that kind of kit. So you strolling in for like a quartet gig with your Tama would just
laughed
be
off the stage,
it's not, you wouldn't even get laughed off. People would just be like,
"What's this guy doing?"
What?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to hear anything else. It would just be drums.
Yep. It's a big 20-inch bass drum I've got.
That is important.
But the style of music I play. So I was playing in a big band, and the guy who runs the big band was adamant that I have a rock kit, because he wanted to do sort of rock, disco infused with big band stuff on top, and that requires a big kit.
Yeah, and a big band is a little different, I guess, in that it's a much louder ensemble.
Yeah.
I mean, you should have seen kick drums back in the day. They were just military style.
Yeah.
Marching band drums that people were kicking, hence kick drum.
Yeah, kicking it with your foot.
Know.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, until your man, I can't remember his name. You told me about this on tour last year because I was asked. Aye.
Gene Krupa was talking to, I can't remember his name, but Ludwig, the guy who made the Ludwig drum kits, he said to him, is there any way you can fashion me a device that can kick the kick drum, because it's really hard to sit and play and kick the drum with your foot. So he came up with a kick pedal, and Gene Krupa was the first ever drummer to be recorded playing a kick drum pedal.
Wow.
Nearly 100 years ago. It's amazing. Anyway, moving on to choosing cymbals. So this is a controversial topic with drummers. Some drummers love to mix and match brands, and some people are like true to one brand. I am one of the drummers that loves to stick to one brand. I don't know. I'm a snob. I like my Zildjian Ks. I just like the sound of them. Always have. The first time I ever went to a cymbal shop, and I was just banging around the cymbals, I was like, oh, that's all right. Try some Sabians, try some this and that, Paiste, and then I got to it was like a K Dark Crash, and I was just like, that's the sound I want. That's it. And I just stuck with them. I just love Ks. I've got 4. I've got K hi-hats and 2 K crashes and a K ride. I just love them. But it took a while to figure that out. I've actually got an A ride as well, which is the same company. But I don't know, there was something about them I just really loved the sound of. The Sabians to me just sounded too washy. Again, it's a style thing. It's a personal choice.
Yeah.
But make sure you take your time with it.
I suppose.
You know?
Because I suppose I'm trying to think of both, and I totally understand the reasonings for, as an outsider, for choosing one set and mix and matching. Because the thing is that if you mix and match your different cymbals, you can really like Goldilocks every single cymbal, so you can really go for that. But I don't really know how cymbals work, but I suppose you could end up with like a aesthetically, I don't know if that would make a difference. If you really care about that, all your cymbals would look different.
A lot of people do care about that.
Which I think aesthetics plays more into your instrument than people like to let on that it does. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then I totally get the whole just sticking with one series, because they'll all have like a consistent kind of soundscape, I guess. So it makes total sense. I suppose that part is very much try out different things and see what works.
It's really difficult. See, when you go into a drum shop, you get handed a stick and you're tapping all these cymbals, and you're like, eventually they just all sound the same. But there was the latest one I bought, which was the K Crash Ride. It was a Constantinople K Crash Ride. I think it's 19-inch, and it just, there's something really special about that cymbal. I don't know what it was, but even to this day, every time I hit it, I'm just like, oh, that is the sound that I've been hearing in my head for years, and it just works. Anyway,
cool.
So,
quick question:
once you've chosen your kit that you want, yes.
Sorry, it still has to do with choosing a kit. Are vintage kits a thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe for jazz more so. Jazz
or is it because I was gonna say I think there's a bit of lag. I'm talking over you a little bit.
That's okay.
No, we're good now. Because I know certainly with some instruments, like vintage basses, guitars are a big thing. But With some instruments, it can be a bit of like you can get this vintage bloody blah. Like I'm a flute player as well.
Aye.
And it can be the case with flutes. It's like people will go, oh, get this 1930s vintage flute or whatever. But with some instruments, it tends to be that the older they get, the worse they become. So I wasn't sure if that was the case with drums as well.
It depends on the genre. It's very genre dependent. If you're playing in an indie band, they don't care. Usually they just buy a kit off the shelf, or maybe buy a second-hand kit off eBay, and they get some cymbals from a shop. That's it. But jazz musicians are really funny about cymbals. They always want to buy old cymbals. Usually, if you ever played, you play in loads of jazz bands, if you always look over to the drummer, and 9 times out of 10, all of their cymbals have no names on them because they're so old that all the paint has worn off. That's how old the cymbals are.
Or they're crusty looking.
Yeah, they always look really nasty. It's because they're really old and really good. They tend to be. Jazz drummers spend years getting the cymbals that they want by browsing secondhand stuff and looking around. But rock stuff, pop stuff, usually just buy them out of the shop. It's not really an issue. Anyway, cool. So you've got your instrument and you're moving on to tuning and maintenance. So you'd be baffled how many drummers come into the studio and don't know how to tune a kit. It baffles me. The concept of tuning their instrument has never even entered their head. It's not as obvious as tuning a guitar because it's so jarring when it's out of tune. Anyone can tell, even someone who knows nothing about music can tell that it's out of tune. But a drum kit takes a little bit more of an ear, it needs to be pointed out to some people. So, first of all, when you buy your new kit, there's a good chance that the drum heads that come with it will be stock skins. Now, stock skins are just cheap drum skins that the drum manufacturer just puts on just so that they can you can take the thing home and play it. They're rarely any good. Some of them are okay. Some of them, if you buy a pedal kit, some pedal kits sell their snare drums with Remo heads on them, so they partner with Remo. It's kind of like if you bought a guitar and say your guitar is partnered with Ernie Ball, it might have a set of Ernie Ball strings on it. It just depends.
Yeah, that's actually quite common.
Yeah, it's more common in upper end drum kits, higher end stuff. But on the sort of mid-range lower kits, it's just kind of standard cheap rubbish. So the kind of heads I like to get a coated snare drum head. It's a 14-inch snare drum I just use the Remo Ambassador coated snare heads. I've been playing Remo for years because I just like the sound. It's a big fat sound. I've used Evans in the past a couple of times, and I just fall out with them. I just don't like them. Anytime I play Evans heads, it just sounds too bright for me. They're too thin. It's more jazz.
Right.
It's when recording them, I always find that they're really, really bright and tinny. It's just not my thing. I prefer a warm, fat, punchy sound, especially on the toms. I use clear pinstripe Remo tom heads. They're dual layer, so they're really, really resonant and really, really boomy. I just really like that big fat sound. So yeah, tuning, once you've got your proper heads, actually learning how to tune the toms. There are literally billions of videos on YouTube of people explaining how to tune toms and snare drums and stuff. So generally, if you've never thought about this before, I recommend you do. Get yourself a drum key.
Right.
Get it on your car keys, because I guarantee you will lose it, and you're less likely to lose your car keys. So get your drum key attached to your car keys. That's my philosophy. I'm constantly finding drum keys kicking about the studio, people just leaving them behind. It's great. Never have to buy them. So, generally, just as a general thing, I'll just say just now, snare drum, you want it tight. Toms, you want them loose, generally speaking, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes
that reminds me of
I tune my snare drum low sometimes for some songs because it sounds cool.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a funny story. When we were playing in stereo. Is that right?
Yes.
Playing in stereo.
Yes.
And you were playing Hendo's kit.
Yeah.
That's for those who don't know who that is. It's a drummer, Stephen Henderson. He's great. He's really, really good.
And he's so
but
funny.
He had
some of his videos on YouTube are hilarious.
Toms. Yeah, they're really good. But he had tuned his toms pretty tight, and you weren't expecting it.
Yeah,
and he just hit these two toms like super hard, and then whoop, sticks just flew out of Gavin's hands.
Yep. They're like, ding!
Well, was that during the actual gig or the?
I think it was a sound check. Yeah,
sound check.
Because I just sat down at the kit and wasn't expecting them to be tuned so high. And I was like, whoa! Because, again, jazz drummers love to tune their toms really high. Whereas...
Well, it's all due to the playing style, isn't it? Because you don't tend to play as hard, whereas the kind of music that we're playing, there's a
it's more,
bunch of different influences, to do with, and a lot of it is pretty hard and fast.
I think it's more to do with rebound, so stick rebound. I have my toms tuned so low that you can't get any stick rebound. So rebound is when you strike the drum and then the tightness of the skin forces the stick back up like a bouncy ball, and then you snap and then you snap it back down by pinching with your fingers, and it goes da-da, da-da. You can do it on a snare. So with one stroke you get 2 hits. So, on the toms that I have, they're so loosely tuned, you don't get that. You just get 1 hit. But that's how I like it. I just like the sound of that. Just depends on what you're doing. Occasionally, I'll tune the snare down, like I said, and it gets a nice big fat sound if I'm recording or whatever. But generally, I have the snare up. Spend some time with your kit. Try and learn it. Experiment. Don't be afraid to try different things. And I've had some drummers come in, and their snares are all off, and they're like, "Oh, my snare used to sound really good, and it's just not sounding great." And I'm like, "Have you tried tuning it?" And like, "Well, I've been messing about with it. I can't really find the thing." And then you go around it a couple of times, and then, oh yeah, that's a lot better. So getting each lug tuned to itself. So you put your finger in the middle of the drum just lightly, and then you tap round the edge of the drum where all the tuning lugs are, and try and match the pitch to roughly the same. And then that's it in tune with itself, and then you can tune it either up or down depending on what you want to do. Just little things like that.
Cool.
If anyone's never heard of it.
So in terms of tuning, do you actually? This is going to sound stupid because obviously they're going to be tuned to a note. You everything that you hit produces some kind of tone. But do you tune it? Are drums tuned to A equals 440? That's what I'm basically asking.
No.
Do you actually tune them to notes, or is it just a general?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't, but lots of people do.
Would there be a benefit to doing that?
If you're really nerdy and want to have your drum kit tuned to the band or the song, then people do that. I don't tend to do that because I play in so many different projects, and I don't really mind. I just have a generic tuning. So
fair enough.
I do tune my toms. I think it's like perfect fourths. Could be wrong.
Right. Okay.
But I don't know. I just have it. I just know what I want them to sound like, and I tune them till I get them there. And it's taken years of playing drums to know where I like them more than anything else. So,
yeah, fair enough. I suppose, is there like a good starting place for somebody who's like, because I know I can certainly talk about it next week, but like with like amps, for example, like a really good starting place for anybody, regardless of what guitar or whatever you're playing. It's really good to just start 12 o'clock, bang, like straight in the middle, and then from there, that's a really good starting place to like, well, let's roll the bass off a little bit, or let's boost it, and like you can tweak things like that. Is there like I guess like an equivalent?
Yeah. With toms, I when I'm putting on a new head, I'll have them all loose, and then I'll tighten them until the tom isn't sagging. So when you set the tom head down, you'll see it ripples. So basically, I just tighten it up until I get rid of the ripples. So I just loosen it until it's just tight enough to get rid of the ripples, and that's it at its lowest tuning. And there I can start playing. So I tune the snare really high, and I tune the kick drum really low. So I like a really doom, and then a ga, like really high tuned. I just love that sound. It's just so big sounding, especially when you record it and put a really hard compressor on the snare. It's just really massive sounding. That's just how I like it. And every time I change the heads, I always have a duster handy, and I clean the drum round the top of the shell. Reason for that is if there's loads of like stick debris built up, you'll find if you've ever changed heads, it's just sawdust everywhere. You need to clean that out, because if you put the new head on top of like sawdust, it doesn't sit right, and it won't vibrate right, and it won't resonate with the drum shell. So you need to make sure that's properly cleaned before you put it down. Stuff like that. It's pretty simple stuff. And as with regards to maintenance, something I bought really early on, I think I've said before, I spent about £300 or £400 on hard cases for my drum kit, because I wanted it to last more than 10 years, and it has so far. If you buy soft cases for your really expensive kit, you're brave. that's really brave.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
I think in general, soft cases are just, they're all right for just cheaper instruments, maybe. Like I would maybe see my little cheap kit. I would buy soft cases for that, and I wouldn't really care. It protects. Soft cases protect the finish, like the paint, but hard cases protect everything. You know, if you drop that sucker, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. I suppose it depends on how you're traveling as well. Because the thing is, like, for example, with when we went on tour in the band, I think I brought I can't remember if because I have like a semi hard case, and I also have like a hard case as well, like a proper leather, like, you know, box, basically, wooden thing. So yeah, it also depends on that. So I guess if you're just traveling yourself in your car, you might be okay with soft cases, but if you're having to put your kit in the back of a van, and there's a PA in there, and there's all sorts of other hardware and mic stands and other guitars and amps and things, and they're just getting piled on and on and on. Things move when you're traveling, and things knock against each other. So
it's not so much. I mean, if you don't care, if you don't care your instrument looking shining and gleaming, if you like, fine, you can have scratched and beat up looking drum kits, and it doesn't really matter. But hard cases protect it one layer further than soft cases, in that if something heavy, say you've got a little tom sitting in a soft case, and it's in the back of a van, and a big speaker falls off the top and lands on that, it will split that tom in two. It will just crack that shell right open like an egg. If it's a hard case, it'll no make a scratch. nothing. My hard cases, which are now about 10 years old, I think I bought them roughly the same time as my kit, maybe just after. My hard cases are wrecked, but they're still working. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. The straps still work, the handles are still there, but there's dents and gouges and scratches and paint missing and stickers ripped off. They're just manky looking, and that's great because they're doing their job. This is exactly how they should look. And the toms themselves and the drums are literally spotless. They may be a bit dusty, but that's because you can't really stop that
at the moment.
Yeah.
I suppose. And the other thing to take away from that though is like, don't be too sad if you do end up seeing little flake. Maybe a bit of paint is chipped off or something, because that's just what happens.
You can't stop that.
Know, depending on how you transport something, it'll happen a little quicker, but it just, don't get sad. And in fact, I would argue that you should be happy because it makes it look like you've been playing it a lot. A well used instrument. An instrument that has aged because it's been used looks great. Yeah, always. So,
what do you think about those fake guitars that are fake aged?
Yeah, I hate them, man. I hate them so much. Because they just look bad. They don't look for real. But when you do see a guitar, it sounds a little silly, but sometimes when I see like a little scratch or a little flake or something on one of my guitars, I get a little happy because I'm like, oh, it's on the right path. This is gonna look great in like 5, 10 years, 20 years maybe.
Yeah.
No, I'm not personally. I'm not a big fan of like fake. Pre-relict.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of an Instagram filter. It's just not real.
Yeah, it is. To be fair though, there are some people. It does obviously it costs extra, but there are some people. I don't know if it's the same for kits as well. I don't know if relic kits are a thing. Are they a thing as well?
Probably. I've never noticed.
Buy your $5,000 cymbal with cracks.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, there are some people that can make it look really convincing.
Yeah,
but,
that's the thing as well. Cymbal wear, heavy cymbal hitters, beware. The problem with nice sounding cymbals is you want to play them all the time and then they end up cracking, which happened to me. What I've found is the when you stick a cymbal down, you've got the felt on the bottom and the top. The cracks that you get up at the bell usually occur when you don't have a felt on top with a butterfly nut. Because the thing, when the cymbal is flapping up and down, if there's nothing stopping it from flapping all the way, the rod just wears away at the hole, and then you get cracks. And it's pretty much all jazz drummers take all their felts off the top and they just leave them open because they barely hit their cymbals. But rock guys do this, and the cymbals are like flapping like this, and then
like crazy.
After a while, you just get a crack that starts at the bell and then it goes all the way down the cymbal. It happened to one of my splash cymbals, and from then on, I always make sure that I've got my felts on top and bottom. But cracking at the edge happens, and it's happened to a couple of my cymbals, and you can send them away to get repaired. So what they do is they cut out the crack from the edge. They sort of people on YouTube can see my finger pointing. It's kind of like, so the cymbal's like round, and then they cut around the crack and they leave a nice little smoothed out sort of U shape, and then they polish it to like mirror mirror quality polish. It's like so clean, so that all the cracks are gone.
Right.
So it stops the cracks from going all the way up the cymbal. And you can get it done for like
cool.
20 quid. Really, really cheap.
Okay.
Saves the cymbal.
So no welding.
Nope.
Cymbals.
Nope, because that would really affect the sound.
Right. I don't know. I mean, like, I know nothing. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, it would really affect the sound.
So don't weld your cymbals, kids. Don't do that.
No, if you want that sound, go for it. I know some people that drill.
I don't even know what that sound would sound like.
Well, the vibrations need to go right round the whole cymbal, and if there's a big
so
weld, it will just stop. You know, the vibrations.
Right. Interesting.
A friend of mine got a drill, and he drilled like old hi-hats. He drilled some holes in, and then he put like 9-inch nails through the holes. So when he hits it, it goes.
Yeah, I've seen some people have put like.
It's really trashy.
Yeah, have put like rivets.
Yep. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
And it makes especially on ride cymbals anyway, because it makes your ride cymbal way more.
Sizzly.
It just gives it a bit more shimmer, I guess, and it just keeps going for longer. So
yeah. So
I'm learning so much today. It's great.
I can't wait for the bass one because I'm trying to learn bits of bass. I've got a bass in the studio.
It'll be a good one for YouTube anyway, because I'll be able to
look at this
pick
bass.
things up and go, look at this and look at this.
Yeah.
Subscribe. I'll see if I can record some. Yes, I can record some audio as well. Maybe, but it's easier for me to do that.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
so we'll move on to setup. Now, I have seen some right wacky kit setups in my time from people. There was a guy in who has his bass drum set up, and he's got his right foot on the bass drum, left foot on the hi-hat, but the hi-hat is like right screwed round so that his foot is like that and the pedal board is like that. Instead of so if you look on YouTube, instead of his foot lining up perfectly with the pedal board, his foot was kind of 90 degrees off of it. So he was pedaling it across the board. So he's kind of got it right to the side of his arm. I have no idea why he does that, but it works for him. So with setting up your drums, it's whatever's right for you. There is no right or wrong. But a good place to start is to set up your drum stool. I usually set my bass drum up first, kick drum, and then place my stool up. And when I sit at the drum stool and I just lift my legs up and then just plonk them down as they would naturally fall. So some people have a wider leg set or a narrower leg set, just depends on who you are, how tall you are, etc. Wherever they land naturally is where you should set your pedals. So if you set your pedals really, 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 really wide and you naturally aren't that wide, you'll start to do strain to your body. So a lot of people set their kit up wrong. What they tend to do is they sitting up and forward, they set the kick drum up directly in front of them. And that's not how you do it. I thought that's how you did it for years and realized that I was twisting my right foot by doing that. So if you look at the kit, if you draw a line from your belly button straight out, you'll notice that one leg is pointing off to the left and the other leg is pointing off to the right. And that would mean that your bass drum should be pointing slightly to the right, not directly in front of your nose. If it was, then you're twisting your ankle. So your hi-hat board should be pointing off to the left, and the board on the kick drum should be pointing off to the right. So it's up to you to arrange your seat in such a way. Obviously, if you want your bass drum to point outwards to the crowd, perfectly perpendicular, then you have to change your drum stool to wherever that suits. And it needs to be wide enough to get your snare drum in between your legs. See, when I learned that, it was game-changing. I had really bad knee problems when I was playing kit, because if I actually looked down at my foot, I was all twisted in this weird, my my right foot was all weird angled because I thought you had to set up right in front. And then once I moved my seat so that the kick drum sat naturally off to the right, as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, that's so much easier, so much better. I was a dum-dum. And 2016, like, I'm admitting all my like mistakes I've made. Well, that's the point in mistakes, isn't it? So you can learn. So
yeah,
I think it was 2016 was the first year that I was full-time in a wedding band. And we did like 40 or 50 gigs in 1 year. And it was quite heavy going. I'd played lots of gigs before, but not that many in that short space of time. And I was starting to feel fatigued. My lower back pain, my sort of it's actually mid back. My middle of my back, I'm quite tall, I'm 6'1". The middle of my back was in agony most days, especially after playing at the weekend. I would maybe do two gigs, at least one gig every week for like 6 months, 7 months during the summer, every weekend playing. My back was in agony and I didn't know why. And I started doing some research like, oh, is it my bed? Do I need a better bed? So I got myself a good mattress and it helped a bit. And I was like, what is this? Why is this happening all of a sudden? Blah, 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 blah. Think. I was like, what about my drum stool? Now I've got a really good drum stool and it's got a back support and it's nice and spongy. It's a Tama. Don't ask me the name. I don't know. It's cool. It's a drum thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I found this video. I think it was Dave Weckl. Now you've probably heard of him. He's like one of the most prolific jazz drummers of our time. He's unbelievable musician. And he was talking about posture, and it kind of blew my world a little bit. He said that you have to set up your drum throne so that there is a gradual slope from the top, just up at your hip, the top of your thigh, down to your knee. It should be sloping down. It should not be parallel to the ground, the top of your thigh. If it's parallel with the ground, you're too low. And you need to come up. The reason why is because if you're there was a guy on YouTube demonstrating this with regards to a spine. He had like a skeleton set up, like one of those plastic skeletons, and he was showing you what happens. You get compression in your lower back and stuff. So when your top of your thigh is parallel with the ground, when you play the bass drum, you lift your leg up, and you're compressing discs in your back. And if you have a slope down to your knee, when you lift your leg up to play the bass drum, you're lifting it up to be parallel with the ground. And then when you let go, gravity does the work, and you've got gravity on your side. And as a result, your back is more open and it's less compressed. And literally overnight, when I watched that video, I was like, tonight I'm going to try this. So I brought my seat up high and I kind of matched my thigh to what was in the video. And I was like, right, I'll try that. Swear to God, that gig, I felt no pain whatsoever. And it was cured almost immediately. Mind was blown. I couldn't believe how important this was. And it didn't show its head until I was gigging constantly. Because when you do one-off gigs here and there, you don't really notice. But when you're doing it like twice a week, every single week for a year, you're like, these little things really come into play. Honestly, game changer. Mm-hmm. Just unbelievable. And there was a story that Dave Weckl shared, which kind of was amazing. He was playing back in like the 80s or 90s. And he used to have all his cymbals quite high because it was really popular in the 80s. You saw drummers like, I was thinking Phil Collins. He was like awful for that. Jeff Porcaro. What's his face from Metallica? Lars Ulrich.
Lars Ulrich, yeah.
Tom's super high, cymbals super high. What happens when you're like this? You get tension in your upper back and neck,
and your shoulders.
You get shoulder compression and stuff like that. Dave Weckl had this because it was all the rage and all the fashion in the 80s to have everything super high. he was playing mid-gig, like doing his thing, and he felt a sharp pain in the back of his neck and collapsed in a heap, fell off the drum stool and landed on his back. He had pinched a nerve, because all your nerves for your whole body come up through your spine in a single sort of cord of nerve endings and cables that go into your brain. And he pinched that big cord, and he was completely paralyzed from the neck down for maybe a couple of hours or something, went to hospital. And he was like, oh my God, like I could never play drums again if I keep doing this. And he changed all his kit setup. He brought all his cymbals down lower. He brought his tom height down lower. He changed his drum stool position, everything, the whole thing, rehauled the whole thing around his health, his back health and his neck health and stuff. And I don't think he's had a problem since then. But it's something to be super aware of.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
like,
no, totally. It applies to any instrument. If you see everybody doing one thing, I can definitely talk about that in next week, because there's so many bass
you're getting
things
excited
that I've seen. Oh, I'm getting so excited, man. There's so much absolute, yeah. But it's kind of the same. If everybody's doing it, don't do it. Have a look at what other people are doing, because it tends to be that the fashionable thing does not help you at all. You know, I suppose it's just what was I going to say? At the end of the day, it's just instruments in general. It's all about just playing smart. You know, rather than playing I don't know, cool or playing hard or something. Yeah, it's all about finding that it's about playing more but doing as little as possible.
Yeah, that's that's exactly
making it as effortless for you as possible.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's so right. You get some drummers who like they look like they're hitting the kit as hard as they can and they're like super like aggressive and everything, but actually with a drum, sometimes the harder you hit it, the quieter it becomes. It's kind of a bizarre thing.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Because if you hit the drum really hard, if you don't get stick rebound, the stick goes right into the skin and stops it from vibrating and actually makes it quieter. So you have to have rebound. You have to, if you tense up your limb, you're just stifling and suffocating the sound. If you allow your stick to breathe, you actually allow the drum to resonate louder. So you can actually, you look like you're not even hitting it hard, but it's actually louder than it would be if you were like Dave Grohl. So, okay, we'll move on to sticks. So I had, every drummer will have the same story of them trying loads of different sticks and just being miserable until they find the one they like. So when you play with sticks, when you play live with sticks, they should feel like an extension of your arm. They should feel like you're not even holding them. You just forget that they're in your hand, like they play themselves. So you pick them up and you're so familiar with them. They're so comfortable. You know the exact weight, width, length, everything. It's just part of you. That's how the sticks should feel when you're playing live. And it took me so long to find that stick. Eventually turned out to be the ProMark. Yeah, it's ProMark 5AW.
Right.
5AW. American Hickory wooden tip 5A. I think that's what I've got. I just love that. I used to play Vic Firth sticks, and I fell out with them because they kept breaking. I used to play with 7A, which is really light gauge. It's like really, really light, because I loved the way they make you feel, because they make you feel like you're Superman, because they're so light. You can just go. It's so easy to play because it's playing with like knitting needles. People used to make fun of me. It's funny, but you end up having to work harder because there's no weight behind the stick. You can't rely on rebound the same. So you can play really fast, but it's hard to get any sort of volume out of them. So I moved up to 5As, Vickfirth, and I kept snapping the sticks. We're constantly snapping, and I was like, this is so annoying. I'll try 5A Pro Mark, and they last so much longer. So I stuck with them. I don't know if this was maybe 8 years ago. I don't know what Vickfirth's like now, but I'm so used to the feel of a Pro Mark 5A. That's just the ones I always go for. But yeah, when I used to, back in the days when I used to practice, that's another thing, practice your instrument. Back in the days when I used to practice with 3As, which are basically tree trunks. The reason I do that is because I would play all my rudiments on 3As and just all like playing with the metronome and stuff with 3A. Because it's heavier, it builds up your wrist muscles and it helps improve your speed. When you go back down to 5A, you feel like a god. It's amazing. It's like it's if you're holding like a big bag of shopping and you're walking up the road shopping, and you know your heavy bags in either hand, and it's really 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 heavy. If someone takes that off you and they give you a really really light bag, you feel like, oh, this is so easy. It's the kind of the same kind of thing. You feel like you're floating when you change sticks. So that I used to do that quite a lot. It was one of my old drum teachers told me to do that, like play with heavier gauge when you're practicing, and then go to a lighter stick and when you're actually playing live. And the last thing to do with sticks, something I've noticed, when your sticks start to flake and bits of wood are falling off, just replace your sticks, get new ones. The reason why is because the weight will be different. When bits are flaking off your stick, they become lighter, and the feel's all wrong, and you'll start to miss toms and hit rims and start clunking about, and your rebound's not as strong. You end up having to put more work in because the weight's different, and it'll affect your playing. So just chuck them in the bin and buy new ones. Don't do what Neil Peart did. And there's a funny story with him. Neil Peart plays butt out, which is when he plays the wrong end of the stick. Basically, he plays the bit you hold is the bit he plays with. And the reason why, because people would say, oh, do you do that so you can get a thicker sounding snare drum?
Different sounds.
And he's like, no, I was just, when I was a young boy, I had one set of sticks and I broke the bead off of one end and I didn't have enough money to buy new sticks, so I flipped them round and I ended up preferring it. So he just preferred the feel of it. That was it. It's quite funny.
Yeah, fair enough.
I personally hate it because it just feels disgusting. It's just, it's horrible to me. But some people like it. It's whatever suits you.
Yeah, totally. You know, if you want to feel like you're playing Japanese taiko drums all the time, then go for it. Have you seen the beaters that they use? They're ridiculous. It's literally like, it's a big old thick bit of wood, about that big. They're like two of them, and they just hit these gigantic drums. Yeah. Get those for your drum kit. Oh. See how long that lasts.
Bye cymbals.
Just tear through a skin.
And snap. No, you're okay.
I don't know if I've ever seen that happen. Somebody playing and then just crack straight through.
An Evans skin.
Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah. No, not with Remo. Not with any Remo heads. Because the Remo heads I use are really thick. They're like 2-ply thick. But some of the single ply Evans skins, easily. I could easily put a hole in one of them. It's like cling film, honestly. So, moving on to the last point, recording, taking your kit to get recorded and stuff. So, this is kind of less about the instrument and more about just the recording aspect when it comes to drums. So, number one I put here, because it's a personal gripe of mine, your recording engineer will almost always make you play to a click track. So it's best to practice at home playing to a click track.
Yeah.
And it's true because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, when I record a band, it's usually to a click track, unless they are a little non-click track oriented band.
3-piece or whatever.
Yeah. If it's like jazz or whatever, no click tracks required.
I always think to myself, anyway, I don't know about you, but like every time I've met a drummer and I've mentioned something along the lines of like, oh, so just to make it easier, we'll just record it with a click track, and they've gone, oh no, I don't play with click tracks. It's just it's too unnatural. It doesn't feel right.
Rubbish.
That's about as shady as seeing like a man in a wheelchair with muddy shoes.
That's such a weird analogy.
But
it makes sense though.
It's but if you're a self-respecting drummer, just musician, you should be practicing with a metronome, which is basically just a click track.
Yeah. I don't like. You're basically saying, you're a drummer and your job is to keep time, but you don't like keeping proper time. You just keep your own time. That's why we standardized tuning. We standardized A440 because hundreds of bands were all playing in different keys, essentially different tunings.
Back in the 18th century, everybody was, like everybody was just in different keys.
And
in fact, like it's.
Yeah, it was kind of unified. Like, let's make A an actual frequency, and then that was it. And it's the same can go with time. The drummer needs to have a really good internal metronome so that he keeps a steady pace for all the other instruments to play to. If your internal meter is all over the shop, people will notice. Now. Ringo Starr, he's famous for saying that he hates playing to a click track, but he's really good at keeping time. He can keep a really good time all the way through his playing. He's actually really good at that, and that's fine. But if your drummer is like up and down like a yo-yo, and it's not a musical decision, it's just they can't keep time, then perhaps
it's just that they just suck.
Yeah. It's a bit blunt, but yeah.
It is a bit blunt.
You just suck. Get a click track.
No, I jest. I just practice with a metronome. Like, just do it. It's the same sentiment behind that is the same sentiment that you get when somebody says just eat vegetables. Just do it.
Yeah.
It's don't be that guy. Here's another weird like comparison for you. A drummer that doesn't like to play with a click track is like a 30-year-old that doesn't eat broccoli.
Yeah.
Like you should have grown out of that already.
Yeah.
Just eat your goddamn broccoli, you absolute child.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take that. That's quote of the week. Right. So you get your kit into the recording studio and your engineer is cursing your name because you'll not play a click track, but not this time because you've learned how to do that. You get your kit in and you're rushed about. The engineer's probably getting mics set up and stuff. Always remember to get as comfortable behind the kit as you possibly can before recording, because this will be one less obstacle that you will need to deal with. Because recording is a high-stress situation, or it can be sometimes. You tend to go, oh, it's okay. That'll be fine. Oh, that'll be fine there. The ride symbol's not quite right, but it's okay. We need to get moving. Oh, I'll not think about it. Don't do that. Just make sure everything is at the height you want it before you start. Now, engineers love moving hi-hats up. They're obsessed with it. It's because the hi-hat tends to bleed into the snare mic, and that annoys a lot of people. It annoys me as well, but if your hi-hats, if you'd like to have your hi-hats an inch above your snare drum, do us a favor, don't do that. Basically, they don't need to be that low. Sometimes it can be a preference to have it that low, but when you come to record your drums, your engineer's going to tell you to get it up there, out the road of the microphones. So, yeah, please, just if the engineer turns around and goes, "Oh, can you put your hi-hats up?" Just do it, because you'll just create tensions. Yeah. I'm sure there'll be things like that for bass as well. Like, when was the last time you changed your bass strings? Oh, 6 years ago. Yeah, just refresh your strings. It's the same kind of thing.
Oh, mate, yeah, I'll talk about that.
You're like chomping at the bit. It's great.
Oh no, I'm just like all the things you're mentioning. I'm like, oh, yeah.
So, couple of things. So, you've been playing drums for a while, and you like the sound of your kit, and there's a certain sound in your head that you want. Don't be afraid to voice that in the studio. If you like, me personally, I love a big fat sounding bass drum and a huge sounding snare drum. I just love that. That's my sound. I really like that. That's what I always look for. And don't be afraid to voice that. Now, if you don't like that, maybe you like a more sort of natural room sound of a drum kit. So sort of a general roomy, sort of warm sound, less in your face, then voice that as well. I love in your face, extreme over the top drums. I just love that. It shows on some of my mixes. The snare can't be big enough. I just love that.
Yeah. I like big drums. Big drums makes a big difference for sure.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
And if you're playing ghost notes, what's a ghost note? Ghost notes when you say you're like you're playing a drum beat and it's like little taps on the snare. You maybe like dun dat dun dat, and you'll do like little hits. Sometimes the engineer will put a gate on your snare drum. A gate is a device that cuts out sound below a certain threshold, so it will only let through the big snare drum hits. Sometimes they'll filter out the ghost notes without realizing. If you notice that, like, oh, I can't hear the ghost notes I'm playing there, don't be afraid to say, by the way, I'm playing little taps on the snare drum, you can't quite hear it there. That's sometimes I'm guilty of doing that. Occasionally I'll get a drummer messaging me after I've mixed their record, and they'll be like, oh, in the second verse I play ghost notes through that and I can't really hear them, and then I look back and then I've accidentally gated them out, and it's always worth making sure that comes through. And if there's any preferences you have, like, oh, the hi-hats are too loud or too quiet, or that's not how I picture it in my head, be sure of yourself. Be like, oh, I really do prefer my hi-hats to be a little bit louder there, a little bit softer. That matches my sound. It's okay to say that. Now, the engineer might have some pushback because he might go, oh, that your hi-hats are too loud. It's going over the top of the acoustic guitar and it's interfering with the frequencies. Then you can compromise. That's, there's room to maneuver there. And then lastly, with recording, is always make sure you're happy with your headphone mix, and that goes for live performances as well. Make sure you've got plenty bass. The relationship between drums and bass is like so important. You have to have your headphone mix right. I was recording someone the other day, and their headphone mix wasn't right, and they didn't say, and they went away saying they were happy, and then later saying they weren't happy with the recording. So they listened back to how it went after the fact and went, oh, that was pretty bad, I could have done better. And the reason was because they couldn't hear themselves, or they couldn't hear the track they were singing to loud enough. Now, I didn't know that, and I ask.
Yep.
I'll always ask, like, how's the headphone mix for you? Do you need anything? Do you want any more bass, any more guitar? Is it okay for you? And if I get a thumbs up, I'm assuming it's good for them, and then I roll with it. But maybe they're too afraid. Maybe they'll be like, oh, I don't want to annoy him. I don't want to blah, blah, blah. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you're not happy with your headphone mics, I need more bass, I can't hear the guitar, say it, because it can be the difference between a really, really great take and just a terrible day. So don't be afraid. And the same goes for live performance as well.
Yep.
You've got more control in the studio than you do live, because sometimes you can't really control the volumes of your monitor mixes on stage. Sometimes you're like, can I get less guitar? I'm like, no, you can't, because the Marshall amp's right next to your head and it's up to 10. It's like, no, you can't. So that's that's all I've got for drums. Just the sort of general things to think about drums. I don't know. I feel like I've been rambling for like an hour.
No, man, like that was, I mean, I certainly learned a lot of new things that I had no idea about. I know some basics, obviously, because I've played with drummers and, but no, that was definitely helpful. I think that this episode would even be helpful for people who are maybe you're a bass player and you're like, I want to be able to play some drums. So this would be good for you. Or you just want to understand what's happening. Because I feel like sometimes, you'll be in a you'll be in a band and you'll be playing with, like, for example, our Eriska, where you've got an accordion, electric guitar, bass, drums, bagpipes, violin, and they're all totally different instruments, and it can be really useful to just know how they work.
Yep.
Because but without you realizing it, that will like help you in the writing process. And like how we were talking earlier about like Gene Krupa and things like that. I'll definitely be talking about it, but learn the history of your instrument.
Yeah.
Because for a variety of reasons. One, it helps you appreciate your instrument more. And two, you'll learn about different players, different people, and how they played and how the styles changed.
Yep.
And you'll find that maybe there's some things that are like fashionable now that just don't make sense, and you're maybe thinking to yourself, how they used to play bass in the 60s makes way more sense.
That makes me think of a trend that's happening just now with Instagram drummers. It's called chops drumming. So what it is you play really, really fast and really, really hard. So there's no dynamics. So you basically hit every tom and every snare and everything at the same volume. It's like it's just everything's all the same volume, and there's no. There's a certain tech. I can't do it. I've not grown up to do that. But there's kids coming up now through Instagram and stuff, like 18-year-olds that are playing this stuff, and it looks dead flashy.
There's some really interesting players. There's one I'd like to get your opinion on him. I don't know if you've heard of him. JD Beck. He's like 17, I think.
Right.
But he's ridiculous. He literally just plays kick, snare, hi-hat.
Yeah.
That's it. And his playing is very like it's sort of influenced by like trap music.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
And like it's that kind of thing. But it's a very particular style.
Yeah.
I mean it suits the music.
Yeah.
But
it's because everything's kind of electronic based now. So it kind of influences how the instrument changes and adapts over time.
Yeah. But just learn the history of your instrument, because you'll find that there's probably like, oh, I like how so and so played, or I like how I like what they did here in this period of time, rather than sort of like insulating yourself in this echo chamber of like, well, drummers are playing like this now, so I guess I have to play like that.
Yeah.
A
couple of if you're looking for drummers to watch or listen to or look at, a couple of my favorite drummers that I take a lot of inspiration from would be Dave Weckl, fantastic jazz drummer. Buddy Rich, I suppose. He kind of Dave Weckl's heavily influenced by Buddy Rich. Steve Gadd. Steve Gadd is just unbelievable. His control. Type in YouTube Steve Gadd brush solo. The control that man has with a set of brushes is beyond anything you could ever imagine. Honestly, the guy was an absolute. He's still amazing. And for feel and groove and time and just utter soul, look at Bernard Purdie, the inventor of the Purdie Shuffle. He's just an absolute machine. He's in his 80s and he's still recording drums. That guy has serious feel. Like, go and listen to some of those old school drummers.
He does a really cool. He did a really cool video where he explains the difference between, like an Afro-Cuban samba beat and just a samba beat, and it's really cool. He's great. Just as a drummer, not as a drummer, as a bass player, I definitely enjoy listening to and just learning from drummers. And I'll explain why next time.
Yeah.
Because
cool.
it is important.
So on that note, we'll wrap up part 1. So next week we're going to be diving into part 2, bass. And I was going to add as well.
Second most important instrument.
We are currently working on a PDF downloadable sheet thing that you can download on our website. It's not up yet, but well, by the time this airs, it might be. So have a look. And we're going to include our recommendations for affordable but good gear. And it's going to be everything from instruments to cables to microphones to mic stands to, cases, just all gear, all sorts. So if you're in the market for buying XYZ and you don't know which one to get, have a wee look at the sheet and it'll give you an idea of what our opinion is of certain gear. Say you don't know what kind of brand of XLR cable to buy, there'll be a list with that written on it of my recommendations or Julian's recommendations. Just a little thing we were going to start doing, put some downloadable PDFs on, just things related to the podcast and things you can take away and have a wee look at. So we're trying to write that up just now. Got a couple of ideas for the future ones as well. But yeah, more stay tuned for that and more to come. So as always, if you're enjoying this podcast, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I don't even think you can do that on Spotify. But wherever you happen to listen to it, give us a re-rating. And if you want to suggest any podcast topics or any guests, please send us a wee message on Instagram or Facebook at Level Up Your Band or levelupyourband.com, where there's a little contact form. And we'll get back to you with your requests. But as always, hope you're all doing well and you have a good week. And we'll see you next week for part 2, bass. See ya. Bye.
Yep. Bye.